Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the blockchain space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by Susie Batt, crypto ecosystem lead at Opera. Susie's obsession with blockchain technology started while researching how Syrian refugees are processed and receive aid in Jordan. Susie went on to work at ConsenSys in 2018 before joining Opera 2 years ago. Opera has been innovating in the browser space for more than 25 years and currently has more than 350 million active users. Susie, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Thanks, Wade. Thanks, Ulf.
Great to have you on.
Yeah, really. We're excited
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
we're excited about this conversation. And so, as I mentioned very briefly in the bio, you have this incredibly interesting and unique entry point into blockchain technology. I'd love for you to kind of dive deep and give us the full background, full story of how you first discovered blockchain tech.
That's the cool thing about crypto is that there's been so many different entry points. So if you're looking to get into Web3, there is a will. If there's a will, there's a way. In my previous life, I worked for USAID, which is part of US State Department and the World Bank. And I was focused mostly on climate work. And I discovered that through some colleagues that there was this technology called blockchain that was being used for Syrian refugees in Jordanian camps. And they were putting biometric scan data on blockchain. This is a private UN developed blockchain with the help of ConsenSys. And instead of taking 6 weeks to reconcile bank statements, it really took 6 seconds to process. So these refugees would go through, procure whatever they needed, their tea, their sugar, food items without a voucher. So, most humanitarian organizations have paper vouchers, which you redeem, and there's a whole back-end process. Basically, these refugees who probably don't have ID and don't have currency with them, fiat, would then go in and do their biometric scan, take what they needed, and go. So it was saving millions of dollars on the front end for the UN and bank fees to reconcile payments. And it was also like just the throughput and the elimination of fraud in the process, which is rampant. I was like, what? The UN is like being efficient and there's less bureaucracy. I mean, we all kind of know that. I'm not just being cheeky, but then I was like, I got to figure out what this is. And so I, reached into like my friends group and had some friends who were involved at World Economic Forum, and they made introductions to someone at ConsenSys who was an MD. And I was like, I'll do anything. I will do anything. I just need to learn. And that was 2017, 2018. And at the time, ConsenSys was like the sandbox for everything Ethereum, obviously, because Joe Lubin is one of the co-founders. And so I worked in the Bushwick office in ConsenSys Academy. We were training thousands of devs on Solidity to build out the ecosystem. And I just learned how, I mean, I like ran my own node on Geth and using Homebrew and, sat behind the guys from MetaMask and just soaked it all in and made the best of friends from everyone in that kind of era. And was like, I never turned back.
It's such a cool story. Like, I can tell you, we've interviewed a lot of people and we always ask their sort of background and how they were introduced to crypto. And I'd argue this is the most unique in that it's a story. No, for real though, because usually it's I heard the name through a friend. I heard of Bitcoin, or I heard of Ethereum or something, and I started dabbling and I wanted to invest. It usually has to do with like the money aspect, the financial and investment aspect is what draws people in. So it's so cool to hear a story where someone was seeing it in a real life use case that was making lives and business better and got intrigued and then moved into the space. It honestly is a lot different. And just maybe a follow-up question here is, why do you think that we don't hear as many of those stories and it's usually more on the sort of like investment end of things?
I mean, I do hear of those stories. I was on Blockchain for Social Impact board for quite a few years, and that's all we worked on. UN has a global innovation group that works on these types of use cases. But I think for your listeners, it's important to take away that whatever animates you, whatever you feel passionate about, you can make that leap over the chasm into Web3 from whatever angle. Like, that's the beauty of this technology, that if you're into supply chain, go knock yourself out. Like, if you're, if you're into ready-wear fabrication in high-end haute couture, there's a place for you there too. But you just have to find out who's doing the work. Who do you want to work for? And, write that list together and figure out, and ask people, like, do you know anybody at these companies? Do you know anybody in, do you know this person? And that's how I found myself at ConsenSys.
I love it. I love it. Now, switching gears a little bit here, but I saw on another podcast that I heard you say that you pay your children's allowance in crypto. So I'm curious, what made you decide to do that? What do your children think of that? What's their understanding of crypto?
So, when they were born, I set up Gmail accounts for them. And I would email them or send pictures, like I would be on the train or, something cute would happen and they were so little, they were like, they wouldn't get it, but I was just like this gushy mom. So I would email them photos or sound clips, of their voice changing. And then when I joined, when I got into blockchain, I was like, okay, this is like very Web 2-y. Like, how am I going to elevate this? And so I opened up a MetaMask accounts for them. And you can have sub accounts. So I would move from that. And now that they're older and they actually know what they're doing, I've had to get them out of my account. So they have their own Opera wallets within the browser. That's like, I'm going to show a little bit, that's natively embedded in the browser. So by virtue of having Opera Crypto browser or Opera GX browser, because they're all really big gamers, they can just open up the wallet without the KYC because it's non-custodial, and they can, trade or move money. I mean, they're not really trading, but they are playing Axie and some other blockchain games. And like, I just watch them. I learn what the friction points are from watching like 8, 10, and 13-year-olds figure out, like, why do I need 24 words? Why can't there just be 14, 12, or why any at all? Like, why can't you just like stick your tongue out and like they read it, So they're sort of like my in-house beta testers.
You've done a talk, I think it was ECC, on Generation Alpha, which sounds like that's where your kids would fall into that age category or demographic. What do you notice about just that generation, some of their tendencies, and how do you think they will be in terms of crypto adoption when so many of us, or like the older demographics, have found it quite challenging or confusing to the average person? Do you think this will be a smoother onboarding for this Generation Alpha?
So they are mobile first. They're crypto first, or will be. Generation Alpha is from, I think, 2009 to 2025. And the estimate is 2 billion people in Gen Alpha by 2025. Wow. I mean, that's an enormous amount of new talent, new users, new innovation, new way of living, right? These kids have been through race riots and a pandemic. They've been homeschooled. They've been without their friends. They've learned on computers. Like my daughter's, multiplying, dividing fractions on a computer. And I was like, I don't even know how to make a fraction on a computer, but I think with all this influx of talent and design first, gamification first, like these kids grown up on Roblox, they know how to trade. They know what a scam is. They've learned that. They ask each other, like, is this a good trade? Should I be doing this? And they learn from like getting blown up and losing their shirts. But I think this movement towards the gamification of everything, and being so close to gamers and influencers and KOLs will further enhance that space and these gated communities. Like they turned to me and they were like, Mom, you're on Discord? What are you doing on Discord? And I was like, back off, guys. Like I was on Discord first, but I think we, at Opera also realized like if we want to exist, we've got to pivot and keep evolving to this new generation. Like, some of these browsers are offering like cashbacks and, tokens for browsing. It's like, like, okay, like give me crypto back, give me something else back, give me unlimited features or free, VPN. So like we did. Like we can't expect this generation to adopt what we have built. We've got to keep our eyes open and see how they're using things and how they want to live and how they're socializing.
I think that's a great sort of transition to Opera, but maybe we can take a step back. Can you just tell for those who aren't familiar with Opera as a brand or product line, can you explain, what Opera's all about and sort of where your part in Opera is and maybe more on the crypto side, obviously, as well?
Would love to. So Opera is based in Oslo, Norway, and I can see by your name that you're from Scandinavia too.
My name is Swedish. Yeah, that's right.
You're Swedish. Okay. So Opera is a Norwegian company established in the mid-90s. It was the first browser natively embedded in a mobile phone. So Ericsson and Nokia back in the day had Opera browser. It was the flagship browser, the Red O. They were they're still so innovative and nimble. They invented the tab. This is like something that I learned when I joined. I thought Google had, but it was actually Opera. They've had security features in place. They've sandboxed a few products that then went wild in popularity. One case being Opera Mini, which is like the #1 browser in Africa. It's I call it like a low impact wallet. It's enables the user who doesn't have access to Wi-Fi or very limited cellular network in remote areas or in costly areas to interact as a browser, and also now with a crypto wallet embedded in. And then we also launched 2 years ago Opera GX, which is the #1 gaming browser. And they were all kind of built in these small, let's try it out, let's test it, let's see how it goes. And with innovation and time and great leadership, it's evolved to be its own standalone product. So we have 4, the flagship, GX, Mini, and Opera Crypto, which we just launched in January. So in the same vein, we're seeing how this goes. There are different philosophies, for each product. However, design, security, crypto wallet are, synonymous in each. We rebuilt the SDK in the wallet on JavaScript. And so you'll have a seamless flow from product to product when you use the wallet. You'll just sync each wallet in each browser.
So the launching of that earlier this year, the crypto browser, can you dive a bit deeper into what was that process? I mean, I would imagine this is something that's been worked on for a number of years and that type of thing. And what's the user experience for somebody who maybe hasn't tried out that browser? You mentioned the wallet, but then you also said some things about add-ons like VPN. Can you dive deeper into what the crypto browser is all about?
Sure. So back in 2018, a colleague named Charles Hemmel, who went on to head up was lead product at Ledger. He had the foresight at Opera to build the wallet. As a crypto enthusiast and an NFT enthusiast, he was like, God, we have the users, we have the brand. What are we going to do in this blockchain space? So he built the wallet. And in 2018, there was nothing to do but collect crypto kitties, right? So that's what they did. And they had these really fun drops with different NFTs. And then as the ecosystem moved to multi-chain, sidechain, and now layer 2, and now after DevCon, we're talking layer 3 and CKP rollups. We have seen an opportunity to open up our functionality to be multi-chain and multi-wallet. So just a few weeks ago, right around DevCon, we launched our wallet selector feature, where you can choose between your MetaMask or your Opera or your other EVM compatible wallets, and flow natively instead of having these add-ons. And that means that there are safety benefits like malicious phishing or copy and pasting private keys and having that intercepted. So we've tried to eliminate this friction point of having users understand or know or even care about what blockchain they're on. And, this is most noticeable between Ethereum and Polygon, where you'll have to toggle between the two to see your NFTs and then panic when you realize they're not in your Ethereum wallet, they're in your Polygon, on an Ethereum chain, a mainnet, they're on Polygon. Mm-hmm. So in the Opera wallet, you'll be able to see all your NFTs irrespective of chains. You'll be able to view them that way. Mm-hmm. And so we're slowly evolving to the point where we have already in the search bar, you can put in any IPFS address, ENS domain, unstoppable, FIO, YAT emoji string. or Handshake, and you can natively resolve that in the search bar. Like that's so cool,
No
right?
kidding,
So, like, and the next generation will be like, yeah, like of course we want to do
Obviously.
that. Like,
expect,
what? Of course, like IPFS, of course, interplanetary following. Like, yeah. So, but like that isn't intuitive until today.
Right.
Mm. So what do you think, why has Opera been able to sort of, last through the different stages of the internet? We have, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. Opera's obviously been innovating. They've managed to go through those large transitions. Why do you think that is?
I think Opera's strength is really being nimble and not being afraid to test different ideas and keep it isolated from its core product at first, and then moving through like full integration as time, sees fit. It's Scandinavian. It's there's a reverence towards design, a very modest executive team that's very disciplined. And leaders have been around Opera for many years, so they get the culture. They understand how things operate in, through the decades. And we also know local markets. For 25 years, we've known Kenya, Nigeria, Brazil, Germany, Poland, wherever, name it, we've been there. And, the world is big and privacy means different things in different places. Regulation is different in different parts of the US, let alone different countries. And having the strength of employees on the ground in those countries saying, yeah, Visa, MasterCard's not going to work here. We only use debit cards. Like that's just how we roll in this place. That allows Opera to, funnel that information upwards and make decisions that are applicable for that particular market.
Ulf, do you realize our audience has been either watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? No, they should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment and turn on notifications. And if you're listening to this podcast, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So go check out the episode description. You can find all that information below. And we have an update on the NFT, don't we?
That's right. We didn't previously mention this, but this NFT for OG supporter is a one of one. There will only be one of this kind ever minted, and we have a few surprises for the person who purchases it. The link is in the episode description.
And back to the episode.
Susie, I'm wondering about, we think about the browser space and as you just pointed out, I mean, the reason that Opera has been able to evolve through all the different variations of Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 is that hyper-local focus. And now it sounds like also the focus on specific things like a crypto browser, like gaming specific and everything along those lines. But just in general, what's it like in the field of browser competition? I mean, you've got some big names. You've got Firefox, you've got Chrome, that kind of thing. What's that experience like? Is it just a matter of like, you're not worried about what the others are doing, you're just hyper focused on what Opera is going to take on, or what's it like being part of that?
I think there are different use cases for different browsers. There are different philosophies for different browsers and different strategies for the future. Opera has chosen this multi-wallet, multi-chain user experience, tactic. And we'll see. I think it's not mutually exclusive. I use 3 different Opera browsers. I don't think one fits all. I do think that in terms of chains, you need to understand how you want to use them in order to gain, you have to understand what you want to do first to figure out what chain you want to use. So I think maybe with some browsers, it could be like that. Maybe there's, some users might not care so much about divulging private information as others. I think it's up to the users, and that's like a metaphor for blockchain. It's like you choose how you want to use it, what you want to use. Your functionality will then determine, and what you will, which one you'll choose. So, I don't think it's really the competition. I think everybody should be doing this. I don't know why more browsers aren't, to be honest.
And so on that subject of, choosing chains and Opera being multi-chain in regards to your crypto wallet and how that works, can you sort of tell us more about what are those chains? How many chains does Opera support right now? And I presume, but maybe you can clarify, is that going to be an expanding thing in the future where more chains are continually added?
Sure. And, I want to make a more like a macro kind of backup statement. And that is some people will say why blockchain? Why so many chains? Why does a user need so many chains? And I think first we have to talk about blockchain adoption. And, there have been 3 distinct phases so far: the ICO boom of 2017, the DeFi summer 2020, you'll remember, and the NFT wave of 2021, which we're still sort of riding out. And the end of last year, there was an estimated 300 million people owned some form of cryptocurrency, mostly from DeFi and NFTs. So we're seeing this big growth of use. We're seeing that it's not just Ethereum like it was 5 years ago. And we're seeing different ways that side chains eliminate friction and settlement. And but what we haven't seen yet is a native Web3 approach from any major consumer brand. So we're still seeing the need for Web2 architecture to facilitate, or we're waiting for that Web2 architecture to upend and replace with a Web3 tech stack. So I think until that happens, we'll need the lessons learned and the infrastructure of Web2 to access the Web3 utility and the enter blockchain.
I'm curious, kind of going back to your time with ConsenSys, and I think I heard you say at some point that you used to maybe be a bit of an ETH maxi, or at least that was kind of your number one focus. And so for you personally, I think this is a really interesting point. We've talked on a lot of episodes about maximalism in the space, whether it's Bitcoin maximalism, ETH maximalism, and just kind of diving into that, how, Ulf and I have our own personal views where we don't necessarily think that's the best thing for this space. We think the future is probably multi-chain, as Opera has clearly taken that position as well. But what I'm curious from you, Susie, is what got you past that point? So if you were somebody who was, ETH focused, that was kind of your number one thing, what kind of opened your mind to the possibility of these other blockchains having a role as well?
I think I felt it in my wallet. Literally, remember when gas fees were $75, dollars for just to do a it was just, so then everybody kind of migrated to Polygon and, Near entered in with nearly zero, or they would, transaction fees, or when you opened their wallet, they would, pad it so that you could make your transactions free. And then Aurora, of course. So I think what enabled, I just realized that Ethereum would be the settlement layer, but we could use different side chains, and then there are also layer 2s that have been evolving so it didn't hurt so much. It was really expensive, but now we're seeing use cases where video or photography or that stored on the blockchain is different on different chains. UI, UX, the number of nodes, the number of how the infrastructure is laid out, validators, like you can choose between how decentralized a particular chain is if that really matters to you. Solana versus Near, or Elrond versus Solana, or and how dApps interact with those chains are really important, and how devs are building on them. And that's why I love going to these conferences, because you get to see who is building on what chains, what type of innovation is happening real time in these hackathons, and you get a different aha moment like every time you attend.
On that note, like you mentioned before that DevCon is your favorite conference to go to. And so I'm curious, how was this year's DevCon? What was the biggest takeaway? And why do you love DevCon so much out of all the conferences?
Yeah, so DevCon is developer conference. Started with Ethereum, I guess 2014, or no, maybe not that long ago, 2015. And it's always a celebration of an exchange of ideas. It's not a competitive environment. It is really like, how do we get in a decentralized work environment and a decentralized blockchain? How do we get on the same page and roadmap out, integrations, progression, future EIPs? And there's so much diversity. So whether you're a gamer or you're working on a social graph, or you're a music aficionado, or you want to save the Colombian rainforests, which there was a huge regen finance area at DevCon this year. It speaks to me, and the ecosystem in general, just as being so diverse. And it's just like, it's great when people you work with are also your friends. And, with COVID, we didn't get to see each other for a couple years. And so many new people have entered the space, and so many new faces, that this year was particularly poignant because, of course, the merge. And we got to celebrate that in person. And Jonathan Mann's Panda song was hilarious. You got to look that up on YouTube. And we just, this year, there was a lot of side chains and layer 2 talk. And the layer 3 talk was ZKP rollups, which is the first time I had heard of that term. So I always love it. Plus, there's so many social impact, women in blockchain and SheFi, discussions that I just find it so juvenating. It's also one of the only conferences where I get to learn and listen and not be shilling or speaking or at the booth. Like you could really be a student again.
That reference to layer 3, that's the first time I've heard of it as well. Do you have just kind of like not getting too deep into it, but just a high level of what that means? I mean, is that just the progression that there will be more and more layers for scaling solutions?
Yeah. So if you Google or Opera, Vitalik and DevCon, ZKP, you'll hear him talk about the evolution he sees with a mobile phone is like running your own node on your phone using like ZKP too, as another layer on top. But, I can't explain anything as like Vitalik can. So certainly search for that and listen. But it's very compelling, and I always love hearing what Vitalik thinks is next. I mean, I remember being at a hackathon where he talked about swaps, and I think Hayden Adams was there hacking, and that gave birth to Uniswap.
Wow.
Like, that's how beautiful when you're there, you're like, oh my God, I was there. Well, I didn't come up with that idea.
So interesting. Yeah. And we're the same way. I mean, we hear any one of our guests talk about certain things, and then to re-explain these things is very difficult. It's like, just go watch that conversation, go watch the actual thing. One thing I want to ask about, so this episode is being released on Monday, November 7th. And my understanding is by the time that this is out, there will be some big news regarding something called DegenKnows. Can you dive a little deeper into what that's all about?
Yeah. So, Web3 will brings in the creator economy. And what we want to do at Opera is be a part of that and allow our users around the world to experience NFTs the way they should be experienced, which is like, you should be able to create them. But there's so much friction and so much like ambiguity around how to do that, that we've come up with different creator tools. But the first step is this product that we started like kind of in a basement kind of situation. And it's an NFT analytics tool. So it allows you to dig deep into different NFT collections and white papers to it's sort of like a Bloomberg, but for NFTs. It's like a monitoring. It scrapes all on-chain data and packages it in a way that you can query, like even, like wallets that have the most Bored Apes, or wallets that are showing Bored Apes plus up and coming collections that maybe you hadn't heard of. So I've used it to buy new NFTs. And it shows like the propensity also for like whitewashing and how much traffic is going in and out of certain select collections. It's just like one of those eye-opening tools where you're like, whoa, what am I going to do with all this information? And so it's fun to just kind of click around and dive into various collections and see what you want to buy, because there's a price point for everyone. I mean, Bored Apes is just beyond, so many people, their wallets. So it's an analytics tool, and we'll be launching that at NFT London with an hour workshop on all things crypto in the browser. And then we'll also be launching the NFT widget, which allows you to drop down without starting up a different page or a different tab, so that you can read about the collection and understand like when it was launched, how many are in the collection, what is the average price point, and things like that. And then we'll be moving into the creator tool by Art Basel.
And so that's all just going to be like baked in native in the browser. And is any of this like,
Yes.
paid for, or is this all free with the browser?
It's free. It's all free.
That's
so
awesome.
it's VPN.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It's like a really, give it a go. DegenKnows.io is the site, but then you can also try the NFT widget.
One thing I'm interested or curious about, Susie, is, your kind of entry point in the timeline, right? So we talked about being with ConsenSys kind of like 2017, 2018. And like, if we follow that along, like the bull bear markets, one of the cool things is you were in the space during a time, the bear market, the last bear market, which was tough. And a lot of people left during that time. And then joining Opera 2 years ago. That was kind of like right at the start of a new bull market. And now and you talked about, you talked about DeFi summer, you talked about the NFT boom of 2021. So one of the questions we like to ask a lot of our guests is just advice for those who are maybe experiencing their first bear market and why they should stick around the space, even though it's a bit grim when you look at the portfolio and everything along those lines.
It's not emotional like it was the first time. It's sort of like your first breakup. It's like devastating and horrendous, and I'll never be in love again. But it's it's an evolution, and I think there are growing pains. And I mean, to be honest, the whole market is in the toilet. Like every market is in the toilet. So I would be measured, and I only buy. So like, what kind of advice do I have? Like, I just buy and hodl, and I have a ton of stuff that's random and stuff that's doing really well still. But what animates me is just what I can do with things, and what I can do with the tokens and the technology, and what I see is coming down the pike from my vantage point. And it gives me hope, not just hope, but it's like, that's how the future is going to roll. I'm not a trader, so I have a different long-term, horizon.
Crypto bear market aside, they come and they go, right? There's bear markets, there's bull markets. Inevitably, bull markets they pull people in. That's when the whole industry gets a lot more attention. But when do you think we'll reach sort of mass adoption in the crypto space? Obviously, it's ever growing, but what does mass adoption mean? Obviously, Opera is helping to push that along and bring people in. How long do you think it might take?
We didn't really know that the NFT wave in 2021 would be so big, and that JPEGs of apes would be so profitable. I kind of think that music is going to be the huge entry point for normies, because you don't need to know crypto to love it. And yet there's so many use cases for music. And you had a guest on earlier, I think this month, with music NFTs.
We've had a few over the summer.
Yeah.
So we've been lucky to talk to a few guests about music NFTs.
I think you guys are spot on. And the reason being, everyone connects with music. Everyone has, music is emotional. It's you can still collect it. You want to be close to, it represents maybe a time in space, and friendships and memories and feelings that are ethereal. And you want to get closer to the artists. You want to learn more about them, and you can do that through this technology that will not only benefit the artists with peer-to-peer transactions, but also with collectibles and gated communities, and access to concerts and freebies, swag and things like that. Gone are the days, hopefully, where you get really bad swag at concerts that are, just like not even really made by the artists, but that you can custom make things or put it on an LVMH bag, or, buy a token and then redeem it at a concert and go backstage because you've been a fan for 25 years. So I like to see those types of ticketing options and experiential opportunities, which don't exist right now. And I think you'll need blockchain for that. And that will be an entry point for I think music will be the entry point for normies.
Yeah, well said. Susie, this has been such a great conversation, super interesting, like a lot of points that I think are just going to be really beneficial for our audience. But before we let you go, there's a little segment that we have at the end of every show. We ask the same guest, or every guest, the same 3 questions in a segment we call You Had Me at Crypto. Alf is going to ask you those 3 questions.
You ready?
Love it. I'm ready.
All right. The first question is, who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
My favorite person to follow. I would say, well, I think Denison Bertram is hilarious. Tally. And he's just, if you get to meet him in person, he's even funnier. He's one of, like, definitely pithy and, like, sometimes, irreverent. Yeah, like, definitely fun to follow.
Awesome.
Kevin
All right.
Owocki too. Kevin Owocki of Gitcoin,
Nice.
Green Pill.
We had the pleasure of chatting with Denison on a when was that, a year ago, something like that.
Yeah, I guess so.
He was talking about DAOs and all the tools that Tally does. But you're right, he just has these, like,
Right?
he loved it. He goes on these tangents and he's just yelling
He's
and
like
yeah.
philosopher king. He's
Yeah.
like, you should have seen him at DevCon. They were all on beanbags in the parking garage. There was like a whole hacker's house in the parking garage of this this establishment. And like everybody was just like listening, and he was just like philosopher king. He's awesome.
Love it. Go check out that episode. All right, second question. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
Oh God.
10 years out. This isn't, this is not financial advice, anything like that. It's just a Hail Mary.
Hail Mary here.
I'm gonna say it's like Price is Right. I'm gonna say 2,300. No, 230,000.
Okay.
230,000. I wanted
Add a
to use
couple
the number
zeros.
23. That's my,
There you
that's
go.
my, yeah.
Okay.
That's a favorite number. So that's what I'm going to, who the heck knows?
Who the heck
cares?
knows?
Hey, you might be
I'm not going
spot
to
on.
be using it anyways. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't carry my gold bars around.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, we'll check back in 10 years and see how close you are.
God.
All right. Third question. What is the most underrated coin or project in all of crypto?
I am going to say Elrond. I mean, the e-gold right now.
Nice.
Yeah. Just on the heels of going to Elrond X Day, I'll be a keynote there. So yes, it's front of mind right now. They are integrating their blockchain with BMW and another car, and like they've got really innovative use cases. An incredible tech team and tech stack, and great BD. They're number one or two chain in France, hence why X Day will be in Paris. I just get like I just see the tech being really robust. Some really talented Romanian devs there.
Love it. Great answers. You did a good job on that 3-question gauntlet. Well done, Susie. And thank you so much for joining Alf and I on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
Thank you, guys. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate having me, and happy Halloween.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.